assessment of professional team.
The staff at Invest St. Lucia and the staff at the CIP unit.
They're the ones that put those
Yeah.
things together.
Yeah.
Mr. I'd like to have a lot of stuff. Are you saying that if you were there, if you were there in person, things would have been better? Because I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Yes, you can speak. Your substances just don't care.
As though I get the feeling that you're calling for a no confidence in his administration. Are you going to go that far in Parliament?
Well, our strategy is dynamic. So I will not, at this moment, make a statement of yes or no as far as that's concerned. But what I'm saying is that if you speak to ordinary St. Lucians, I mean, I want you to speak to, and young and old will tell you things are slow. They will tell you things are bad. In fact, a favorite phrase is nothing a running. You understand? And that is even more serious at this point when school is opening in September, the 4th of September. When the Labour Party was in government, we had a general STEP program where we employed sometimes between 2,000 and 3,000 people, not 7 or 8 as you see now, about 2,000 or 3,000 people all over the island to help them to buy their school books. By now, the SSDF would have already said what level of assistance that they would give to parents and children in the school. Right now, only what we've heard, only what we as opposition MPs have got is the normal 20, 25 bursaries for primary schools only. I understand there have been assistance for secondary schools. We've only got for primary schools. That's all we've got. All my colleagues, they can testify. We've only got 25 bursaries for primary schools. So what I'm saying is that you have the government. A few months ago they said wait for the budget. That was the refrain from the government. After the budget. What the budget has done is it has increased taxes. It has increased airport taxes, and it is actually projecting a $220 million deficit for the country. So I'm saying that things are bleak, and this is not an opinion of the Labour Party. It's an opinion generally from the people of St. Lucia.
How will the Prime Minister's presence change that?
You see, the Prime Minister is the leader of the country. The Prime Minister is the one who ought to inspire confidence. The Prime Minister is the one who has to bring the country together. And that's the job of a Prime Minister. So in these times, when you have your homicide rate, and don't get me wrong, we are not doing like the United Workers' Party. You may recall, every suicide was blamed on Alvina Reynolds. You may recall, I know you have a good memory, and many press have a good memory. Every murder was blamed on Philip Lacobinier. Every murder, every violent behavior was blamed on the government of the Labour Party generally. We haven't done that. We will not do that. But we are saying that the Prime Minister must inspire. The Prime Minister must not divide the country. You see, it seems that the government is preoccupied with attacking the opposition. The opposition has said to the people, we do not wish St. Lucia bad. We want good for St. Lucia, but the government must do its job. And as far as we're concerned, for the last year and a month, the government has failed in its promises, and it has failed in what, to date, it has failed in what it has promised the people of St. Lucia.
Just on the Jimmy Henry matter, just want to come back to that. What is your take on the fact that the government of the Prime Minister has already clarified?
And that is the
why he resigned?
And that is the point I made in my statement. Jimmy Henry was considered important enough to be made a minister, even though he was unelected. Even though he lost the election, the Prime Minister, in his own deliberate wisdom and judgment, found that Jimmy Henry was good and suitable just 12 months ago to be made a minister. And now this man gets up and he resigns, and the Prime Minister hasn't said either, this guy wasn't functioning, or this guy asked me to go. He just leaves the country, and the minister resigns. It's a sign of indifference, because Jimmy Henry was not elected. Jimmy Henry was selected. That means that the Prime Minister had confidence in him. The Prime Minister's own judgment sought that he was good enough, even if the people rejected him, that he was good enough to be a minister. So the Prime Minister has to account, and he has to tell the country what is the real story behind the Jimmy Henry resignation. He owes that to the people, because Jimmy Henry was a selected parliamentarian.
Okay, I wanted to get the SLP's perspective on the recent situation with RSL and new information coming to light and decisions as to.
And that is the point. And that is the point I made in my statement. Jimmy Henry was considered important enough to be made a minister, even though he was unelected. Even though he lost the election, the Prime Minister, in his own deliberate wisdom and judgment, found that Jimmy Henry was good and suitable just 12 months ago to be made a minister. And now this man gets up and he resigns, and the Prime Minister hasn't said either, this guy wasn't functioning, or this guy asked me to go. He just leaves the country, and the minister resigns. It's a sign of indifference, because Jimmy Henry was not elected. Jimmy Henry was selected. That means that the Prime Minister had confidence in him. The Prime Minister's own judgment sought that he was good enough, even if the people rejected him, that he was good enough to be a minister. So the Prime Minister has to account, and he has to tell the country what is the real story behind the Jimmy Henry resignation. He owes that to the people, because Jimmy Henry was a selected parliamentarian.
Okay, I wanted to get the SLP's perspective on the recent situation with RSL and new information coming to light and decisions as to.
And that is the point. And that is the point I made in my statement. Jimmy Henry was considered important enough to be made a minister, even though he was unelected. Even though he lost the election, the Prime Minister, in his own deliberate wisdom and judgment, found that Jimmy Henry was good and suitable just 12 months ago to be made a minister. And now this man gets up and he resigns, and the Prime Minister hasn't said either, this guy wasn't functioning, or this guy asked me to go. He just leaves the country, and the minister resigns. It's a sign of indifference, because Jimmy Henry was not elected. Jimmy Henry was selected. That means that the Prime Minister had confidence in him. The Prime Minister's own judgment sought that he was good enough, even if the people rejected him, that he was good enough to be a minister. So the Prime Minister has to account, and he has to tell the country what is the real story behind the Jimmy Henry resignation. He owes that to the people, because Jimmy Henry was a selected parliamentarian.
Okay, I wanted to get the SLP's perspective on the recent situation with RSL and new information coming to light and decisions as to what exactly are the plans. So, what's the SLP's stance on the RSL?
First of all, the SLP regrets the closure of Radio St. Lucia. We believe that the government could find a formula to keep Radio St. Lucia open. We regret it. Secondly, there is a lack of information as to what is happening to the staff at Radio St. Lucia. When the minister says he called somebody in the statutory board to employ at least one person, I mean, this is pathetic. At least one person, and so this is just the government is just callous and indifferent to the rights of workers. But what's even more important is the government has found they've found the money to invest millions of dollars in a foreign entity. and also to pay the salaries of the workers. And that entity is not a charitable organization, it's a profitable organization. It's to make profit. It's a profit-making enterprise. So the government has guaranteed profit for that company. But a long-standing situation like Radio St. Lucia, that could be re-engineered to provide a medium of education for the people of St. Lucia, has been closed, and the government has said nothing definitive about the future of the staff or the station itself.
What was the SLT's thinking, if I'm correct, in 1997 when RSL was privatized, and was it in a better financial situation at that time?
Because we understood that the media landscape was changing, we understood that, and the government at the time for the SLP could be run on commercial lines, on more commercial lines. Radio could be run on more commercial lines, and that is why the government took the stand in corporatizing, in making it basically a semi-private entity.
I want to Mr. Edward, Edward is talking about sports being a priority. Talking about, she's saying that the government is looking after the sports. Sports is high on the priority. But listening to you, it looks like this is not true at all. And the only thing I get from you is the lack of care of sporting facilities in the various communities. Is that enough to say that the government is not concerned about sports in the country? Athletes?
Well, one would have gotten the impression that when free ministers were assigned to that cluster to provide oversight for youth development and sports in particular, that we would have seen St. Lucia making more strides than we would have made in the past. But if you go into the actual communities themselves, I'm sure what you see will be very disturbing to you. Yesterday in my constituency, for example, yesterday was constituency day, I toured the constituency, and the majority of the playing fields are abandoned. And I'm talking about grass that is 5 feet, in some cases, high. Now, if playing fields are out of commission, what sports program can you have? You cannot have strong national teams if you don't have strong community programs. So as we speak, there's nothing happening in a number of communities, not even a sweat, because, as I said, the playing fields have been overgrown by weed. People are resorting to tying their animals on the field, and young persons are left to loiter. Now, we had a program in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports in collaboration with NICE called a Playing Field Maintenance Program, where we understood that in order for you to have any serious sports program in the country, the facilities must be available and they must be up to a particular standard. Playing fields are out of commission. What can you have? And I'm extremely concerned that the gains that we made between 2011 to 2016 have been eroded, and it will take us some effort to get back to where we were. With respect to Gillian Alfred, I'm very happy that she was able to win the medal for St. Lucia, and I'm sure most St. Lucians shared that particular sentiment. But it did not just happen overnight. Through the National Lotteries Authority, the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party provided a tremendous amount of assistance to that particular individual to cause her to be where she is today. Now, we've said before that as an administration, as a party, we are not here to piggyback on the success of any athlete, irrespective of the discipline. But I just think sometimes it's a bit dishonest when people come and they make it seem as if they are responsible for things for which they have absolutely no responsibility. I mean, I can give you a list, scores of names of young athletes whom we've assisted to go beyond the shores of St. Lucia. Because let's not run away from the fact that it will be extremely difficult, or more difficult, to produce world-class athletes in St. Lucia, to nurture them in St. Lucia, because we don't have the level of competition in some instances, and the facilities are lacking. So that when Kirani James becomes an Olympic gold medalist for Grenada, he did not just grow up in Grenada. From very early, he had to leave the shores of Grenada. And we've recognized that for some sporting disciplines, we may have to go that same route. So that when Julian Alfred got her scholarship to go to St. Catherine High in Jamaica, a request was put forward to the ministry, which was upheld, and the National Lotteries Authority paid for that. And it was not just a case of paying the ticket. A young girl living Leoness Comprehensive, living in St. Lucia, going to Jamaica, that would call for some adjusting. We paid for her mother to be up in Jamaica to spend time with her, to help her make the adjustment. For the secondary school championship in Grenada, which they refer to as Champs, very big competition. You have scouts from all over the world going to that meet to look out for talent that they can recruit for their clubs, their universities and whatnot. we paid and ensured that Cuthbert Twatini Modest, who was a local coach, was up there with her, again to provide a comfort level to cause her to perform at her best. When she needed her mother, we had to send her mother up to be with her, because she was not living with her parents, she was living at somebody's home in Jamaica. And for a young girl, that can be a bit disconcerting at times. But what was very, very remarkable about her is that she understood why she went there. She never lost focus, irrespective of what challenges she had. But it really became unbearable. It was really heart-wrenching when this administration came into office. And one of the first things they did was to stop the stipend that we were giving to Jillian. Just a little under 20,000 Jamaican dollars, which is nothing more than 150 US. That was stopped. So I'm really happy that she did. And as I said, there are a number of other athletes that are out there in Texas and in other parts of the world that through the National Lotteries Authority, we will be able to assist. And I'm hoping that it won't be much longer before we begin to hear about their success stories in much the same way that Jillian did at the Commonwealth Youth Games.
Okay, last question for me. Just trying to understand RSL then and now. Did entity was in a financial situation especially at that point? If the disbandment of GIS, did that come about as a cushion for RSL since it was noticed that it could not support itself financially?
You see, there are some institutions in the country that cannot only be run for profit. And that's very important. You see, government is not a business. There are some aspects of government that must be run as a business, like the airports. The airport is a situation where the government can run the airport as a business through a PPP arrangement. It'll be interesting to know, going forward, what the government has done with that PPP arrangement. But RSL, we understood that RSL would have faced its challenges. But the purpose of RSL is to educate and to give an avenue for people who cannot always afford commercial rates to express their views and their opinions. So when we moved it to being a semi-private company, the idea was over time for it to at least break even, if not make a profit. But we understood that not all institutions can make a profit, and that is a key point. Not all institutions in the country will have to make a profit. It depends on the service they provide and what section of the community that they are aiming for. But the government of the Labour Party knows very well that Radio Solution was under tremendous stress. But we would have found ways to keep it open. The Labour Party would have found ways to keep Radio Solution open. You see, the GIS was basically reorganized as an arm for government information. But Radio Solution is public information. There's a basic difference between government information and public information. What you want Radio Solution to do is to give public broadcasting, but the GIS would be a government information body. Basic difference.
But wasn't there a plan under your administration to merge RSL?
At some point, to make them not mutually exclusive at some point.